Hello out there, my name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here is my take for today entitled, Let's All Support a People's Constitution and One More Thing. A few days ago here in Abuja, the much talked about National Political Summit convened by the Patriots under the leadership of Chief Emeka Anyaku held and issued a communique. In this communique is what all Nigerians of goodwill ought to pay attention to, more than the political games that our politicians have already started playing. Their games, as we know, have little public interest content. If we could get many of the ideas in that communique supported by non-political leaders, then we can begin to structure the behavior of our politicians towards a more spirited direction. This is an important point. The communique, for instance, is calling for a new constitutional order where we can get a constitution that we can truly call our own, not one that is derived from a military decree that was sealed by generals who have little or no desire or even experience in true democratic evolution. Many of them even lack the understanding. And so let us support this call for a constitution that we can say it is truly our own. The communique is demanding that the people's constitution should be confirmed also in a referendum before it is signed into law. Let us also support that. Also, the communique is calling for a return of genuine federalism, where the federating units will enjoy autonomy, the kind of autonomy that was obtained before independence and in the First Republic that produced the first TV station in Africa, in Nigeria, in 1959. At the time when Ireland didn't have a TV, or Turkey. Turkey had it in 60, Ireland had it in 61. Let's support a communique that takes us back to those days of glory. The summit is also calling for the shelving of this presidential system, which according to the communique has become, and I quote, too expensive, prone to abuse, constitutes a hindrance to people's welfare, and a major threat to the future of democracy in Nigeria, unquote. How many of us can disagree with that? If the opposition politicians are really serious in this country, they ought to be screaming loud about that kind of issue at the top of their voice. Because the conduct of the presidential system in Nigeria is becoming more like an elected monarchy. And that's not what we want. Let us support something else. Another system of government, possibly parliamentary. And the communique is also saying that currently the presidential system has, and I quote, quite enormous powers currently concentrated in the presidency, unquote. It also added that we should have a reduction of that enormity by means of devolution of powers from the center, that is from the presidency, to the federating units. That is clearly the way to go. Even President Tinubu can agree with that, based on his antecedents. The communique is also calling for several other excellent ideas which ought to form the basis for even the 2027 elections. In my view, this is what we should demand. We should demand these measures from those who seek our electoral support for the forthcoming 2027 election. We should turn that communique into an electoral matter. If the executive and the legislative arms of the current government, federal and state, if they won't act on it now, then we should turn it into a 2027 electoral matter. That's the way to go. We can pile pressure on the political class, and we ought to do it for ourselves, for the future of this country, and for the quest for a better country. One more thing, a note to Governor of Edo, please leave Peter Obi alone. As a Nigerian, under a democracy, and because my maternal grandfather is from Benin, actually a chief in the harbor of Benin's palace, what happens in Edo has a lot more attractions for me. And so I'm going to advise the governor today. Governor Monday Ekpobolo, you are doing some good work, but it's important for you to focus your good efforts on those work try to avoid needless controversies. It's not helpful. Mr. Governor, you cannot circumvent the movement of any citizen who is law-abiding, whether it's a politician or not, except for due course and under due process. Telling Mr. Peter Obi that he cannot come into Edo State without telling you and warning him publicly that you can't guarantee his safety, and in the tone that you spoke at a political rally, is very inelegant. Must we remind ourselves that in the 2024 elections that brought in the governor, he scored 291,000 plus votes, compared to the 2023 elections figures of Peter Obi, who won the presidential post in Edo State with 331,000 plus votes. He has 40,000 more votes than the governor in terms of numbers. Softly, softly, Mr. Governor. Peter Obi has some good numbers among the people of Edo State, and he deserves your respect, just like every Nigerian does. And there you have it. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today I have with me for the conversation Professor Chidi Odinkalu, the former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission and a law professor who has been here, and we'll be talking about quite a number of things around the state of the nation. I'd like to welcome Prof.
Thanks.
Back to Inside Sources.
It's good to be back. Thanks again.
All right. So let's start from the 2 years of the president. I don't think you have made, you've not had so much of your own views. You know, how do you assess the Tinubu administration in the last 2 years?
Well, you and I are alive, so that's an achievement for the administration, isn't it?
I like that. To start.
It depends on what assessment means and what parameters that we're looking at. Personally, on all the major parameters, and for me, there are three issues. One is national security and human survival. The second is the economy. The third is livelihood and cost of living. Those are, for me, are the three major issues. Before you get to institutional integrity of governance and all of those, but if I were to look at these three, I would score the administration below abysmal. Now, take national security.
Okay.
You know, the metric is very simple: dead bodies, and also the footprint of mass atrocities in the country and of insecurity. If you were to look at that, the record is actually quite bad. We had, you know, the high point, of course, was 2015, when we had nearly 10,000 people recorded as killed in Nigeria in one year. And then you had, the graph go downwards, and then you had a major trough about 2018, 2019. Then it started climbing, and then you had the migration of the high point of mortality of killings from the northeast, because the northeast, because of Boko Haram, had for a long time monopolized the first position in the league table of mass atrocities in the country and mass casualties in the country. But by 2021, that had relocated to the northwest, with Kaduna actually and Zamfara accounting for the height of the killings. And then abductions then began to rise, and so we started generating a market in a very active market in kidnappings in Nigeria, and you began to have a kidnapping economy. Of course, in terms of the economy of abductions, the amounts realized from abductions were rising quite significantly across the country. Now, what's happened under President Tinubu with reference to this is, number one, the footprint has increased. And so we had the northeast, then the northwest. It extended to the northwest and southeast under Buhari. Now, the north central is two of the most durably peaceful states in Nigeria until now were Kebbi State and Kwara State. Today, Lakurawa is in Kebbi State and Sokoto State, and Mahmuda is in Kwara State, right? Ansaru is very active in Kogi State. And Plateau, Nasarawa, and Benue states have been overrun. And so when you look at the national security front, the mortality numbers are rising incredibly. And look at the soldiers and police officers that we're losing. Look at what's happening, for instance, in Borno State. The mass casualty atrocities against our uniformed assets have risen in a way that has not been known for the past half decade. But what's worse is that the government is entirely lacking in empathy and acknowledgement. So we lost soldiers in Borno State on a very significant scale. The president goes off to St. Lucia. What nonsense is that? So he goes to Yelawata, to Benue State.
Right.
He doesn't go to Yelawata. Instead, he is splashing water on kids who were brought out to wave at him in the rain. And emergency Ashwebi was prepared for women who were displaced to be hailing him and adulating him and ululating in his favor on the streets, that were overflowing with the blood of our citizens.
Who is responsible for that kind of prayer?
So this is national security, a disaster. Livelihoods and a disaster, because cost of living is way beyond the affordability of the average Nigerian. Many people are dying these days because they cannot afford the cost of medicine. The people who had high blood pressure or who were looking for insulin for diabetes can no longer afford it because the costs are between 300% and 500% higher than they used to be able to buy their drugs for. Now, if you were a cancer patient, you're looking at close to 1,000% increase in the costs of your basic medicine. And this could be anything as basic as breast cancer, okay? Now, the cost of, down to cost of antimalarials. So people are dying in droves. And no, I'm not even talking about slump and die, which is a Nigerian ailment, right? Slump and die is the way a lot of our people die these days. And you talk about the economy and, you know, whether it is the cost of petrol per liter or the cost of money, as in interest rates, or indeed exchange rates. However you look at it, the numbers are dreadful. And, you know, on my way back from the Middle Belt yesterday, my driver was talking about how Abuja had a minister of projects. And I said, wait a minute, which country do you live in? And he was hailing the minister for the FCT and the federal government. They're doing fantastic. I said, which country do you live in? He says, and which city? He says he lives in Abuja. Do you have children in public schools? He said, no. I said, no wonder you're speaking like this, because if you had children in public schools in Abuja, you know that they have not been to school for over 3 months.
Yeah.
And if your kids had to be at home, you'll not be admiring flyovers. Okay?
True.
You will be looking at reality. And then I asked him, have you been to, where are the most expensive parts of Abuja? He said, Asokoro and Metama. I said, thank you. Have you been there recently? He said, yes. Do you realize, forgive my expression, but there's no other way to put it. Do you realize that those places are full of Have you been to Asokoro recently?
As in dirty?
No, the smell. Leaking sewage. No, you haven't.
Well,
go to Yakubu Go 1 or any one of those.
The famous
Nelson Mandela. The doo-doo is leaking from everywhere. How can you have a minister who cannot clean shit? Quite literally. Okay? Now, if the richest Nigerians, the most comfortable Nigerians have to be walking through shit every morning to get to work, do you know the indignity? And all we are doing is talking about contracts awarded so that people can take money off of public coffers and prepare for elections that are over 2 years away. So I'm sorry to say that on every front that I can think of, sadly, I scored the government, let me repeat myself, worse than abysmal.
But quite compelling scenario there, you know.
And by the way, by the time I was finished, my driver started abusing the minister because he hadn't thought about it this way.
Exactly. You know, I mean, talking about the infrastructural, you know, difference that we have seen with Mr. Wike, yes, of course, you know, you could say that. But you're right, you know, what a lot of people ignore, and which we are trying to even get his attention on, is that, look, human capital development must always be front and center. You talked about primary education. I had quite recently on my show, I had to bring the FCT chairman, you know, for the HUT, you know, to come and explain, you know, I mean, to just give us an insight into what is going on. And one of the things that surprised me was that, you know, they have conditioned their minds to the fact that, the money that they are owing them is too much. You know, I asked him, I said, how much? He says about 20 billion. I mean, he even believed that it's too much. And I had to tell him that, look, those are the entitlements.
Wait, sorry, 20 billion. How much did they use
exactly
on the
to fix international conference or the house of the vice president?
That's about double 20 billion.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so...
But this is the point, that under this lot, Nigerians have become very expendable, and Nigerians are being treated as expendable. Yeah. But you know why? Because they don't need our votes to get to power. No, they write up results. Okay? These guys write up results and go to judges who issue judgments to say those results written up are the results of the votes. You see, if you needed votes to get to power and you're told that a human being who is your voter has died, what will you do? You regret because you're losing a vote. And if 2 died, you've lost 2 votes. And if you've lost over 200, as happened in Yellowater, you've lost over 200 votes, you begin to think in terms of securing them. But if the person whom you need is the INEC chairman, all you need to do is surround him and make sure he doesn't die and doesn't defect.
Yeah. Talking about the security aspect, you know, I don't know whether you've been listening to the National Security Advisor, Anu Ribadu, who reads out figures of a lot of the terrorists that has been killed, or using the word neutralized, and quite a bit of that. So the fact that you are able to exterminate and neutralize those number of terrorists, and we still have the kinds of casualties that similarly high numbers, shows clearly that this is a really, really devastating problem, which perhaps we have not actually comprehended how serious it is.
I struggle to recognize this Nuhu. Now, you see, when you are saying you are exterminating your own citizens and counting that as achievement.
But they're terrorists.
Wait, I'm coming. Okay. Even if they are. When you are saying you are liquidating your own citizens,
and what they use is
saying it's liquidation.
Okay.
And claiming that they are terrorists. You've got to be careful. All of us listening to that have got to be careful, because this was how extrajudicial execution started in the old Imo state. What was the modus operandi? The police would round up people. This was in the 1980s. Okay? Police would round up, Fidelis Ayahilome would know this. They would round up people. They would put them in the back of a truck.
Right.
And they start driving. Then, in the middle of nowhere, they ask them to come out. All of them were walking. They all got popped through the back. Okay? Then, as the bodies laid down, guns were put on them, and they were labeled armed robbers who were escaping. And as they were, of course, if you're shot through the back, you're running, right? And your dead body cannot say any other thing.
Right.
And this was how the extrajudicial executions got institutionalized, because people felt there was high insecurity, police, something was needed, and people were being liquidated. Right? Now, it's the same thing. You are saying you have exterminated 11,000, 12,000. Those are human beings. Just as you see, as chair of the National Human Rights Commission,
right,
in 2013, I sat on the Akpo killings in Abuja.
Abuja, yeah.
The 11 boys who were killed.
Right.
There were squatters in a building here. They were killed and labeled terrorists.
Are you serious?
We had an investigation which showed that none of those boys knew anything about terror.
Wow.
None of them had been involved in any such thing.
But they
As a matter of fact,
they
were not, what criminals? They were poor people.
Squatting.
Who were squatters in the house of somebody who had access to security assets. The person was having problems removing them from the premises,
right,
and decided that the way to do it was to bring in security assets to wipe them out. The security assets landed there in one night and took all of them out.
Wow.
They were, as you say, neutralized. In fact, a release was put out that they were terrorists. And we did a thorough investigation. We had hearings inside the offices of the SSS. We had hearings involving the then commander of the Brigade of Guards. It became very clear to everyone that none of these boys had anything to do with terrorism. So when I hear these things about we've neutralized this number these days, I want proof.
But I must ask you, Prof, so how do you deal with terrorists if, I mean, because we do have a problem with terrorists in quite a number of theaters across the country.
Yes.
So
unquestionably so.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, there is no kinetic solution to the Nigerian insecurity crisis. If there were, I would have figured it out long ago. The solution is proper political leadership. The strategy has got to be set by political leaders. That has not happened. Instead, what did we hear? We started hearing as long ago as 2015 that foreign terrorists were brought in so that people could win power in Nigeria. Didn't you hear that? Now, and that was not the first time that happened. Okay? Now, so the first thing is we've got to acknowledge where our problems are. Political leadership. Bandit political leadership and the absence of a political strategy for addressing this thing. And if you want to address this thing, you've got to have the big picture. I'm not saying there is no framework in which tactical options will play a role, but you cannot devolve to tactical options for solving what is essentially an absence of a strategic direction.
A political strategic direction.
Precisely. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have been told that consistently since at least 2016, that many of the people involved in this thing are foreigners. Right?
Yeah.
Until, including in the Middle Belt as we speak, they are foreigners. If they are foreigners, what do you do? So clearly, we are not able to kill all of the foreigners, because if we could kill all of them, we would have done so before now. But also, Nasir El-Rufai, as governor of Kaduna State in 2016, said he was paying the foreigners so that they will no longer kill Nigerians, that he actually went and traced them to where they were, and he told them that a Fulani like them was now in power. They should stop killing, and he gave them money. And he went on national television to give us theological justifications for why paying money to mass killers of Nigerians was a wonderful thing. He's still walking the streets. Nobody has prosecuted him because that is an accessorial offender to mass murder. Maybe if we started prosecuting people like that, we'll send a message across. How you deal with terrorists is not by paying them so that in your view, because they are people from your village or your race or people who go to your church or your mosque, you can pay them and tell them, thank you very much, but don't kill no more. Now I'm in control.
Now, still on the issue of security, so the president managed to get to Benue with the Inspector General of Police, and he made a speech and said that, hey, how come you guys have not arrested anybody? What's going on, Inspector General of Police? And then, you know,
all of a sudden, people materialized.
The Inspector General of Police did a big press conference, and quite a number of people were arrested.
Yes.
But what's your take about the fact that the police has now arrested quite a few of the suspects in Benue, in the Benue killings?
You're just making my point that we need verification. That we cannot just take these claims, ipse dixit, as they are, for granted. That, you know, all of a sudden, mighty things are happening. But let me also say this. I get back to the point about the need for strategy and the effort to substitute tactics for strategy. Now, you see, and one of the really dreadful things that have happened on the watch of President Tinubu is the collapse of ECOWAS. You see, ECOWAS was central to Nigeria's national security strategy. Okay? In one particular way, the mid-Sahelian countries were our buffer from the extremities of the Sahel. The Sahel has always been a brutal place.
Right.
Since the Songhai Empire, since the time of Mansa Musa,
right,
the Sahel has always been brutal. And the Atlantic littoral of West Africa has relied on the mid-Sahelian countries to protect themselves, to buffer themselves against the brutalities of the Sahel. And one of the things that Nigeria accomplished post the Civil War was forging ECOWAS. Now, I don't know whether you've noticed, but since Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso exited ECOWAS into the Association of Sahelian States, the presentation of insecurity in not just our country, but across much of the Atlantic countries of West Africa has spiked. It has spiked like that. It hasn't spiked like that. It has spiked vertically.
Interesting.
Now, and the reason is very clear. And I lay that squarely at the feet of President Tinubu, quite regrettably.
But why, Chidi?
As chairperson of the Assembly of Heads of State and ECOWAS, President Tinubu did not venture into any of those three countries to, at the minimum, seek to persuade them. We had just bought a new presidential jet, right? And that new presidential jet could have done us a world of good. Just simply go and park in one of those airports and persuade those young men in those countries. You know what? This is our region. We're brothers. We don't agree on your coup. But we all need to be alive to disagree on coups. So can we find a mechanism to walk both sides of the road at the same time? Rather, what did we do? We threatened to invade Niger when we knew or should have known that we could not sustain that threat.
So you are arguing that the president ought to have actually visited this...
absolutely demonstrated.
These coupists. Wouldn't that be considered to be a subtle support, when it was clear that ECOWAS protocol was clearly against coups?
ECOWAS protocol did not say you should levy war. I teach the ECOWAS protocol on good governance. It did not say you should levy war. Actually, the options available under the ECOWAS protocol do not at all anticipate anything like levying of war. Let's be clear.
Yeah, well.
But it's not just that, because this does not start with ECOWAS protocol. This starts with something called the United Nations Charter. The United Nations Charter prohibits the use of force. It requires pacific settlement of international disputes. The coup happened in Niger Republic on the 26th of July, 2023. By the 30th of July 2023, ECOWAS was levying, under President Tinubu, was levying use of force against Niger. How many days had it given for pacific efforts to try and tamp that down, to manage that? 4 days. In 4 days, you cannot talk about pacific settlement. That was why, when we resolved at ECOWAS to levy war and then took it to the African Union refused. The United Nations refused to back it. ECOWAS, under President Tinubu, was isolated. It was a diplomatic own goal. And as a result, we've lost those three countries, which we didn't need to do. And now what do you have? ECOWAS was 16 countries in 2000. Now ECOWAS is 12. ECOWAS is, in 2000, we lost Mauritania, came down to 15. Now we lost 3 in one go in September 2023, effective from January 29th of this year. We are now down to 12 countries. And Guinea-Bissau is threatening to leave. That will bring us down to 11. We cannot continue. ECOWAS is too important to our national security and to our national existence. And the president is not exerting, in my view, in my personal view, the kind of sinews required to ensure that security exposures in the Mid-Sahel are contained.
So talking about, that issue of the sub-regional security, so what will you suggest the president ought to do?
I've just told you.
That was what he should have done.
Yes.
So what should he do now, in your view?
What he should do now?
Yeah. Because when you said what he should have done, that your view didn't do.
There are so many opportunities.
Should he still now go back?
I mean, ECOWAS is too important to us. I mean, President Bio is now the chairperson of ECOWAS.
And Nigeria has a very clearly,
Absolutely. Yeah. I also don't think the ECOWAS Commission has covered itself in a lot of glory in all of this. But I do think, quite honestly, that Nigeria can do a heck of a lot more than we're doing in terms of seeing how, now we are in the realm, quite literally, of assets, trying to gather up the assets of ECOWAS, do liabilities, and then see whether we can share the family heirloom in the middle of all of this. And I think that sucks.
Let's move on to quite a few other things. I was also to talk about opposition politics in the country. So recently, we've seen the African Democratic Congress, which they have promoted now and announced officially as the platform where a political party, actually, where all the opposition parties will try to come together going to 2027. And everybody is there. Peter Obi is there, Atiku Abubakar is there, all of them, Aregbe, Aregbe Shola, APC is there. A lot of...
Even Jesus Christ is there.
So what's your own take about, is this a good thing? I think that a strong opposition is good and actually required for democracy to thrive.
I agree.
But beyond that, what's your take on this constellation of political gladiators around ADC?
My handwriting is very bad. And my calligraphy is actually terrible. You see, President Tinubu has been in power. First of all, I've got to recognize the fact that all the people in ADC and more, and in APC and any other political parties, are entitled to freedom of association. That's a fundamental constitutional right.
Yeah.
And all of us have got to defend it. I totally agree with you. A strong opposition is necessary for democratic politics and for democratic governance. That is where my problems arise with the people in ADC. Because they have chosen, they've wimped out on the responsibilities of opposition for over 2 years. In the entire period that President Tinubu has been in power, they have offered less than zero. The only thing worse, I told you that my score for the Tinubu administration is less than abysmal. The only thing worse than that score is the performance of these characters.
They are
even worse as opposition than APC has been in government.
Wow.
Now, and take it from, as you and I speak, we are running 3 budgets in Nigeria. Yes?
Yeah.
What has your opposition said about that? Nothing. President Tinubu, Yelewata, Benue State, what did they say about that? If they did, I missed it. Because probably it didn't carry weight. What did they say about, what did they do about changing our national anthem in less than 2 seconds? Maybe I missed it. Nothing. What did they do about, the one that really gets at me, I've got to confess, is River State emergency. I'm not saying, I'm not saying declare, don't declare. I'm not going there at this, for our current purposes. But how could you declare emergency in River State with a voice vote and no shirt was torn in the National Assembly? Just somebody can stand up and say, you know what, I am opposition, I don't like this, tear my shirt.
Exactly.
Just so that there is even symbolic...
Especially when the president suspended an elected governor
and elected legislature. There was absolutely nothing said. Nothing done.
No outrage.
No outrage.
Except,
no
of
opposition,
course,
nothing.
Tambua walking out, Sereke Dixon, and I think he told Senator.
Nothing came of it. Now, as you and I speak, there were then 11 governors of PDP. I don't know how many there are now because they're all changing their clothes and sites.
Probably.
Okay?
We're just two so far.
Now,
PC.
the 11 governors of the PDP claimed that they sued around the 9th of April against the emergency declaration.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Mm-hmm. As I speak to you, it is now about, if you run the calculation, it's about 87 days later or 88 days later.
Right.
The Supreme Court has not scheduled that case for argument.
But that won't be their fault, though.
Yes? Wait, I'm coming. It is their fault. Don't even allow me.
Educate us.
Now, local government autonomy. Today is what?
Yeah.
Today is what?
Today
is in July.
Yeah, we're already in July.
We're in July.
The second week of July.
The judgment in the local government autonomy case came out exactly this week, 1 year ago, 11th of July, 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yes? Do you know when that case was filed? That case was filed 24th or 25th of May, 2025. From 2024. From the day it was filed to judgment was 45 days. We are now nearly double the time it took. And I'm not saying they should go and topple Supreme Court justices. They should make political mileage. They should be drawing this kind of comparison I'm drawing now. That it took 45 days to decide that case. And after 90 days, the case has not yet been scheduled for argument. That is a political point. That is why they are opposition. That as opposition, you make political mileage out of evident injustice.
I think the folks that constitute the opposition up until now, that you now have people like Aregbe Shola, who has some opposition history. I think most of them don't even understand, how to play opposition politics.
Then they should get out of the road.
So I'm just trying to explain, because some of these things that you said, you imagine, what Tinubu and Lai Mohammed, would have made. They would have made a meal.
Thank you.
Of these things when they were in opposition.
Precisely.
Precisely. So it would seem to me that these folks don't even understand. I think they are still just throwing tantrums.
They are not interested. That is why a minister will consume alcohol, come to the national TV and abuse all of them. This one came to collect money from me yesterday. That one came to me to collect land today. Because these people are not prepared for what it takes to do
opposition. And there is no effective response. There is no effective attack to that kind of conduct.
Precisely.
No, but now that you have people like Aregbe, Aregbe is now the national, Aregbe Shola Ogbeni, is not the national secretary of ADC. I expect, because he does have clearly, he understands, what opposition is. And then you have a few people too, where with the Buhari in the CPC,
Well, the CPC wing, basically, it seems to me, is emptying into
ADC. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So my point is that with people like that and people like Aregbe Shola, that maybe we should expect a little bit of fire from the opposition.
I don't expect fire from Abubakar Malami. I'm sorry.
Well,
with all due respect to him. No.
Well, maybe not Abubakar Malami specifically, but Aregbe is the national secretary of this new party.
He's only one man.
Holding a very critical position.
There's only one man. There is only so much one man can do. And the leaders, first of all, who are the leaders?
Yeah.
Right? There is one man who is entirely lacking in credibility. And I told you here that if Nasir El-Rufai is in the leadership of any opposition formation, I will campaign in 2031 for Tinubu to continue running.
Not just in 2027.
Not just in 2027. Because I just cannot fathom, under any circumstance, somebody with that record coming close to sniffing power in this country again. No.
Interesting. So basically, to just summarize some of the things you've said, the performance of the president is below abysmal. The performance of the opposition is below.
Yes, it's below that of the president. Yes.
So where do we go from here, Prof?
That tells you how difficult things are. And that's my fear and pain with this ADC formation. Because if you want to capture power in 2027, the objective cannot be, okay, let us go and collect power. The objective has got to be, let us offer alternatives to Nigerians. okay? Alternatives on the economy, alternatives on security, alternatives on livelihood, alternatives on human capital, alternatives on infrastructure, alternatives on regional security, those things. And that means what? Offering opposition on the floor of parliament. As you and I speak, and a lot of the people who are involved in ADC are personal friends of long standing. I speak to them and they will tell me, oh, you know, we've got senators, we've got this senator, we've got that senator, we've got members of House of Representatives, these ones, you know, we've even got governors, according to them. But, you know, they're waiting, they're taking their time, you know, to show their hand. And I'm like, if you people are a bunch of cowards who cannot even show your hand now, can you please get the hell out of the way so that we know we don't want to be deceived? If you are a governor who wants to be a member of ADC, tell us you want to do that now. Not tell me, oh, when the time comes, I will do it. If you're a senator, because we do need an opposition.
Yeah.
If you're a senator, you want
opposition.
A very strong opposition, an articulate and prepared opposition. Yeah. If you want to do that now, start showing your hand in the Senate. Start showing your hand in the National Assembly. Start showing your hand in House of Representatives. Yeah. But don't come here and tell me you will wait for 2 more years or 1 more year or 18 months. At that time, I'm not going to follow you.
I think Nigerian political elite, for the most part, is spoiled. You know, and that's the way I just see it. They don't understand, you know, there's too much personal aggrandizement that has beclouded their vision to even understand the very essence of national interest or public interest. That is what I have seen.
We don't have a mission or we don't have an ideology.
Yeah.
We don't. Most of our leaders don't believe in much. You know, I was talking with someone actually quite literally yesterday, and we were reviewing the political leadership under President Shagari. You know, from Shehu Kangiwa, who was the youngest who died first, to Jim Wobodo, who is the only surviving one. Jim Wobodo and Awal Ibrahim in Niger State are the only surviving governors from then who are still alive. Yeah. And both of us agreed that any one of the worst of those people who led the country 1979 to 83 would be the best of the lot now. Today. That tells you something.
It does. On this issue of the opposition, you know, Professor Dati Ahmed, law professor, founder of Base University, running mate of Mr. Peter Obi in 2023, he said something important, and I want to read it to you. He said, he supports the coalition. He was there, you know, when they came out. He said, I don't yet see anyone in this coalition who can scheme and plan over 16 years. With all due respect to Atiku, he has contested consistently. This will be the 7th time. That means if we are to throw his hat, you know, 2027. But tell me, is there anyone else in the coalition who will say, let it be the other person and I will support him? I'm yet to see that. Everyone seems only interested in their own candidacy. But what did Tinubu do? He invested in Buhari. Unreliable as Buhari was, he backed him. And after Buhari, he took over. He stayed committed for 16 years and took it in 2023. Tinubu gave Atiku the ACN ticket in 2007, gave it to Ribadu in 2011, backed Buhari in 2015, and waited until 2023 to take it himself. I'm saying to defeat this phenomenon called Tinubu, you must do the unthinkable. If this coalition, which I recognize is, thinks it is business as usual, it won't work. It has to be less about individual ambition and more about Nigeria. More action, less talk, because talk is cheap. What
I can't improve on anything that he has said. I totally agree. Is that possible? We'll wait and see. I'll give all of them benefit of doubt. You know, I wish them luck. But you know, it's more than just that. In 2027 elections, results will be announced. You have to have an infrastructure to address the absence of voting and the announcement of results. Because anyone who is not, was it not Rotimi Amechi who said that if the current chairman of INEC had been the chair of INEC in 2015, APC would have lost? Didn't he say that?
I think
he absolutely said that.
Yeah.
So, if you have a bandit chairperson leading a bandit electoral commission, which only is interested, exactly what Morris Iwu did in 2007. In 2007, as you and I speak, there are no results for 2007 elections. A lot of people forget. Because there was none, actually. So, INEC does not have a state-by-state breakdown of 2007 elections.
Yeah, they were still counting.
They were still collecting on those states.
And then he went to...
And he went and announced fictional results. Okay? And of course, the courts validated that.
People do these things and there's no consequence at all.
This is the point. So if people are announcing or programmed to announce fictional results, and the courts are programmed to validate fictional results, and you're coming here with a strategy that is built on electioneering and traditional electioneering and telling people to go and collect PVCs and vote, I'm sorry, you are dancing blues when the music is reggae. It's not going to work.
Oh, my. Anyway, just because of our time, let's begin to wrap up. So there's a all-out war between Nyesom Wike and Rotimi Amechi. And the last, was what Nyesom Wike said. I said that, look, this is what happened in NDDC.
That interview is audaciously disgraceful, not about the content, but no minister should show up on national TV that high. That's out of control. No. Look, that clip should not be played anywhere in the world with a suggestion that this person is a minister in government in a responsible country. It's disgraceful. Now, he could have said, I listened to everything he said, but I could not get over the fact that this person on national TV was uncontrollably high.
Interesting.
And a minister is a very high position.
It is a very high position.
And it's got to be for people who have some degree of self-control and who cannot, there are things I don't want to say on responsible airtime.
Right.
But I can only say that clip, quite honestly, makes me shudder. And this is the person on whom the president has conferred such degree of intimate attention.
There's serious romance going on because he even challenged the president, that he should release the report of the NDDC. The interesting thing is that, so if the president refuses to release the report, what does that say about the president? His minister is how they are saying that, please, there's corruption in this country, that,
Precisely.
and he's challenging the president that, please, he's saying, Mr. President, please, in the interest of Nigeria, release the report. If the president fails to release the report,
what does that say of the president? Nigeria at heart?
Yeah, and that's his minister right there.
And he didn't just stop there. He didn't stop. After a while, he stopped calling him the president and started calling him by his name.
Yeah. It's just interesting. We live in very interesting times, Prof. Chidi. Last question is on the National Human Rights Commission, funding. You were chairman, of this commission quite a while ago. I had as guest here on Inside Sources the executive secretary of the commission, and I did ask him about Benue State and Plateau, the killings going on there. And he did express very serious concern, but said that the commission is not will have to be properly funded to be able to carry out the due diligence. Now, so as a former chairman, do you think that the commission is being underfunded?
I've had my innings at the National Human Rights Commission, and I generally like to avoid. I walked out of the National Human Rights Commission on my last day, which was the 11th of December 2015. I've never been back to the building. Deliberately.
Since 2015?
Since 2015. And I don't have contact with the staff. Because my attitude is the people who have succeeded me deserve...
Your work is done.
Exactly. My work was done, and I was very happy to be done with that. So I generally try to stay away from commenting on the National Human Rights Commission. But I'll say this, given the way you frame the question. Money is always limited. First of all, the National Human Rights Commission Act of 2010 makes the National Human Rights Commission a first-line charge institution, no matter how small its budget is.
Right.
But money is always limited, and no institution has nearly enough for its uses. And therefore, every leadership, every management team has got to exercise judgment about priorities. Economists have an expression, a concept for it, is called opportunity cost.
Right.
Right? Now, when I was chair of the National Human Rights Commission, I insisted on plateauing out national expansion because I ran the numbers privately. And it became evident to me that if you kept expanding offices to every part of Nigeria and hiring staff in every one of those offices, you were going to have a challenge, which was, where will you find the money to keep them busy? How do you refund their investigation allowances? How do you make sure that the commission continues to be able to finance its program work? Now, after I left, the National Human Rights Commission has expanded to every state in the country. There are staff everywhere. That means what? People have jobs.
Right.
People are getting salaries as staff of the National Human Rights Commission. The question then is, and that means therefore that right now, the National Human Rights Commission's budget is a heck of a lot more than I could have ever imagined in my time there. The question therefore is, where will you get the money? Now that you have offices everywhere in the country, with offices of course come what? Overhead costs, rental costs, if they're not your buildings. If they're your buildings, then the acquisition capital costs are high, staff costs are everywhere. Where will you get money for investigations? Where will you get money for programs? So it seems to me this is not necessarily about new money. This is more about how you effectively use the money you get, no matter how small it is, and how you forge partnerships in order to find additional or complementary resources to do the things you need to do. I don't want to say more than that.
Right.
But I would suggest that at the heart of the challenge, if there is one, is a challenge of defining what the opportunity cost is for the priorities that the leadership of the National Human Rights Commission at this particular time chooses to pursue.
And the reason why that question is important to me is we're talking about the killings in Benue and Plateau, which are clearly genocidal, and the kind of role that the commission ought to be playing in documenting some of these things so that we can avoid this matter ending up
my brother,
the National Criminal Court.
My brother, that is not an easy thing. If you want to do that, you may need a different kind of team at the National Human Rights Commission. I know what I went through at the National Human Rights Commission when I took on those issues, right? From everywhere. Most of my governing council was spooked out by it all. I've told you about the Bagai investigation. I know what I went through over the Bagai investigation. I remember I had to go to the Chief of Defense Staff then, General Bade. And on one particular investigation, I told you I was able to get the commander of the Brigade of Guards to testify. To do that, I had to go to President Jonathan and ask for permission for his support to release the chair of the Brigade of Guards to testify in that inquiry. The commander-in-chief. I went straight to him on the 28th of February 2013. Sorry, of April 2013. I went to the president, and to his credit,
he released.
He released him, right? But to do that, you do require courage and conviction about what you're doing. And it's to run up against the might of the security architecture and of non-state actors. You've got to have conviction in you and about what you're doing. So this is not about money. Much of the stuff that we did as National Human Rights Commission wasn't about money. It was about conviction. It was about your methods. It was about your rigor. It was about building persuading the other side. I went up to Marshal Bade, and we had one-on-one inside his office. And I told him, God bless his soul, I said, General, that was what I called. I said, General, you see, the fact that you have a uniform and I have civis does not mean you have a monopoly of patriotism. And you see, you may be commander, but I have more credibility with the International Criminal Court than you do. And I do not want on my watch for a Nigerian soldier to be charged to the ICC for something that we can manage. trust me and trust my patriotism. And if you think it fails, pull me up on it. But don't sit down here and tell me that because I'm wearing this, you're more Nigerian than I am, because you're not. He looked at me. I said, you cannot walk me. This is my country, and this office belongs to me. We wrestled ourselves down, and then we became very good friends. And when we were done, he called me and he expressed gratitude, because I told him, we will not be kind to you, but we'll stop short of the kinds of things on the basis of the evidence. We have justification for stopping short of the kinds of things other people are asking for. That shows we are able to bring you to account. And because we're able to bring you to account, the ICC is not going to say Nigeria is unwilling and unable when we have done it. And what happened? The government paid the 35 million that we assessed as damages. Those families were compensated. Everybody came out of that with greater respectability.
Interesting. Very important point, you know, and it goes to the heart of what we always say, that leadership takes courage.
Absolutely.
You know, and I wish that we can find more people of courage, you know, take leadership responsibilities in our country, because the problems that we face, they are very gargantuan problems.
Absolutely.
That anything short of courageous, patriotic leadership, we're just going to be running around in circles. Thank you so much.
Thanks, my brother.
Professor Chidi Odinkalu, for the great work you do. Thank you for your voice, your forthright voice, and thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much, my brother, for the work you do as well.
Thank you so much. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. Nigeria will prevail means that Nigeria will win, and it will win because we will not relent. My name is Laolu Akonde. Thank you for watching, and by the grace of God, I'll see you at the next edition.